American half pound, 2 pure beef patties, lettuce, tomato.
Singles going steady.
This is Singles Going Steady, the podcast dedicated to exploring great singles with a particular eye to the punk, new wave, and DIY eras of the last century. I'm Adrienne Meddock.
And I'm Steve McGowan. We're in a band, The Beef People. We released a single in 1986 on our own label, Zub Records, and we are record collectors and passionate, especially about the expression of pop music perfection that is the single recording. Exploring the mystery of what makes her a great single is what propelled us to begin this podcast. This is episode number Singles Going Steady 0888.
0888. Yeah, I'm sorry, the Chihuahua got loose and we were recording.
I'm so excited because this particular single involves a family member of mine.
It does.
Yes.
It does. And and the single is by a group from Scotland called
The Soup Dragons.
The Soup Dragons, and the particular single is
Whole Wide World.
Whole Wide World.
From 1986.
And you're, like with the conflict of interest disclosure, that there were sort of two versions of this band.
Right.
Right. In the early version, the one that really kind of...
The one that we really are going to be discussing.
The one that we're going to be discussing, the one that really sort of spoke to us musically, very buzzcock. Inflected and inspired, and that featured your family member,
Ross Sinclair, on the drums.
On the drums, right? And your cousin.
My cousin.
Yeah, and and what a great single. We really super dug this band, and not just because of the family connection. I mean, that was kind of nice that like your cousin had this cool band.
Right, but the music was so good that it kind of blew us away.
Yeah, and then he left the band after recording this great
the
album,
first album,
and they became a different band.
Right,
kept the name, but their inspiration, their focus was not this power punk kind of a poppy punk.
They became more of a dance-oriented band, and they were known for a cover of "I'm Free" by the Stones, and they did that song "Divine Thing." It was all very, very kind of
dance-oriented
dance floor stuff. Not stuff that we're
like
as interested
rave,
in,
like rave music.
Right, but they did have much success in the U.S. with that. Not as much with the single we're going to talk about, but we loved it.
Right. They had great success with us with this single.
100% of market share there.
Yeah, and this is a great single. I mean, it's very singable, very pop-oriented. It's got all the things that we love about Buzzcocks. Without ripping off,
right?
I mean, but taking them as inspiration, but not
with a Scottish accent.
right.
So why don't we play it?
I think so.
1986, they were on an independent label called the Subway Organization, the Soup Dragons from Glasgow, Scotland, and Whole Wide World.
Do you know
makes that a great single?
Oh, well, where do we start?
At the beginning.
Yes. I like the fact that it's got that, it moves along really quickly.
Yeah,
it's a short
real
song.
clip, a real clip.
Right.
It's not even 2 minutes, is it?
No, it just bashes through. It's got a great little guitar riff there for just for a second. It just comes in, His vocal is amazing. It does remind me of Pete Shelley, which is not a bad thing.
But it's not an impression of Shelley.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's with a Scottish accent. The lyrics are funny, it's clever. It's a great pop punk tune.
Absolutely, yeah.
And as soon as we heard it, we were like, we should do this song.
Right. And so who can you hear covering this song?
The Beef People.
The Beef People. And so we're going to hear the
Yes.
Beef People covering this song.
So we're going to play it for you now, I think in 1986 in Greenville, playing it live. The Beef People doing the Soup Dragons' Whole Wide World. And there we are, doing Whole Wide World. It's pretty much the same thing, except it has some keyboards on it. Thanks, Ken, our wonderful keyboard player. It was just fun to play, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. And we learned it as best we could, as quickly as we could.
Very quickly, yes.
It was like, well, this goes in the in our lexicon. It's in the set, right?
Right.
And it's interesting. Whole Wide World, of course, it's not the whole wide world that Reckless Eric,
right? Which is also an amazing.
That's
single.
a great song. Maybe a future podcast,
yes,
but it's not 10 years later that you've got a same name, different song.
Right. So we just loved this band, and it was just coming out in dribs and drabs until they had a record called Hang 10. It was only released in the U.S. because it was sort of a compilation of all the singles and stuff that they had put out in Britain. They had done a number of singles, and Hang 10 was a great little collection.
Yeah.
I spoke to Ross recently, the drummer, and he said that he wished that they had released it in the UK. They didn't. They went straight to the first record, but he said it was a great collection, and they really should have made that their first record over there as well.
And by the first record, you mean the complete
first
album?
LP, yes. It's not singles.
And that is called?
The first complete LP is called This Is Our Art.
Right. And then that was the swan song
for Ross, yes.
For Ross, for your cousin.
Right, who went on to become quite a famous artist. He is a PhD at the Glasgow School of Art, which is...
Charles Rennie McIntosh design.
No slouch there, yes.
Building.
Been all over the world, has a...
The whole wide world, I believe.
Yes, and he's very successful and very cool artist.
So let's talk about Soup Dragons.
Yes.
And, this is our art. So you've got that fitting in with the notion of pop punk being a form of art.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And the
highest form of art, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, as far as we're concerned. The cover of that record has the star, from the School of Art on it, and the lettering that you get in the Glasgow School of Art. They some of them, I think, took it pretty seriously about what they were doing, and the band did mature very quickly. They moved from the Buzzcocks kind of easy pop punk sound to, even on that first record, I believe there's some strings, and they moved into some Beatle-y sort of things, and it was interesting. There's still the bash it out songs, but there's also some stuff that's King of Castle and things like that.
Yeah. So they're definitely worth looking into. And if you enjoy, it's a very different band that they became later.
Right.
And that may be more your sort of thing.
Right.
If you know them only from the I'm
Divine
Free
Thing.
And, right. That
there was an earlier version of the band that did some very, very cool things.
And if you're an SGS regular listener, they definitely you might take the same leaning we do, and be a little more attuned to the earlier version of the Soup Dragons. And we were so attuned to it that we did more than one Soup Dragon cover. Right.
We're going to play another one. They had a song on a flexi disc that we got.
And we talked about flexi discs. We've mentioned them, but really, what was a flexi disc?
Usually came with a magazine or a fanzine. The most famous one in America was Trouser Press. Would sometimes have a flexi. It was a thin piece of plastic with grooves in it, like a record. Well, it was a record, but it was just, instead of a solid piece of vinyl, it was a thin piece. You had to be really careful when you played it.
And it was, as the name says, flexible, right? So that you could
destroy it very easily.
Right, but it could also be distributed in a magazine.
Right.
So as the magazine was rolled up or put in, you wouldn't want to roll it up, but it could take, like traveling in the mail, traveling in, magazine racks, that it would tolerate that.
We recently talked about the Pretenders box set of singles, and one of the singles in that was a hard vinyl version of a flexi that they did.
Right, it had been released previously as a flexi disc, but now is a true vinyl 7-inch.
So that was nice that they did that. And I remember when we spoke in our REM podcast about the first REM record, going to see them in Greenville the week that the Wolves Lower flexi came out on Trouser Press.
Right.
That was really like when REM was blowing up, was happening that week, and they were playing in Greenville, South Carolina, because of a flexi.
You would pull the flexi out of the pages of the magazine, just like those cards for subscriptions or in the magazine. You pull the flexi out and put it on your turntable and dance.
And that's what this Soup Dragon song originally came on, and we got a copy of it, and then it was re-recorded for Hang 10. And it's a great little song. It's like a minute and 20 seconds long. I think we played it a little longer.
Right. Well, we're a little slower, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. Or we like to do everything twice. So we'll go, do you want to hear a little bit of Soup Dragons?
Let's play us doing the Soup Dragons song. Yeah, it's the Beef People covering the Soup Dragons. If you were the only girl in the world, and since Adrienne's singing it, we change it to If You Were the Only Boy in the World, because we're clever like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so here we go. So I really like you singing on that, by the way. You did a really good job.
Rock star.
I love us, We're the best band. Somebody's got to love us, It's good.
Well, the job was open.
I know. So that was fun. I loved playing that song.
Yeah.
And,
I had fun playing both of these songs.
Yes. It was always a good time playing Soup Dragon songs.
I don't think there were any objections to incorporating both of them into what we were doing.
Right. So do we want to get to who we can hear covering this besides us?
I don't know. Do you have anybody? Because we kind of did the definitive.
I know. I think that door's closed today.
Exactly. Yeah. I think everyone's abandoned hope. We were going to do it, but now.
Yeah. So we heard the Beef People, and we had to cry and go home.
Yeah, there was a lot of crying and going home at Beef People gigs.
Yeah. Well, we were used to that. Believe me.
Mainly in the band, right?
Also involved throwing things at the band.
Oh, man.
Do we have any recommendations?
What do you?
Oh, we do.
All right. What is yours?
Oh, no, you go first.
Okay, mine is based on Soup Dragons. That's taken from a children's show that was shown in Britain.
Right. A lot of people think it was Doctor Who, but it wasn't Doctor Who.
It was Clangers, and there was these were little stop motion action animation, and Soup Dragon was or the Soup Dragons were characters on Clangers,
right?
And so my recommendation is based on children's television, and it is one of my favorites from when I was a kid, which was a short-lived parody of a parody.
Okay.
The thing it was parodying was Get Smart, which was
boy.
a great show, the
Yes.
Don Adams vehicle done by Mel Brooks, which was a parody of Secret Agents.
Right.
And there was a Saturday morning cartoon called Cool
McCool.
McCool, which I just adored. It was funny and it was goofy, and I loved Get Smart as a kid, but I never connected the two of those together. And recently, one of the creators of Cool McCool came through.
Ron Campbell?
Yeah. And a great animator, was in the heyday of television animation in the 60s, from everything from Scooby-Doo,
Flintstones,
later on the Smurfs.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so he was a important television animator, and I'm so glad I got to meet him.
Right.
And he also, the big
Here we
catch
go.
for me was he was one of the directors of the television Saturday morning Beatles cartoon.
The Beatles cartoon
which to me was just, my hook in as a little girl. The Beatles cartoon on Saturday mornings was such a favorite of mine. And he also was one of the main animators on Yellow Submarine.
Oh.
And evidently the way Yellow Submarine was done is that they did it in segments. So there were different animators who were responsible for 12 and 13-minute segments. And Ron Campbell did one of the 13-minute segments. He was telling me Blue Meanies were his, and a lot of the Max sequences.
Wow.
So just hearing him talk about animation, and of course I came up and I was like, well, one of my favorites of your creations was Cool McCool. And he said, well, that was really based on Get Smart, which, I thought, it's a parody of Spies, but really it was...
Right, a parody of a parody.
Parody of a parody. And he drew me a picture of Cool McCool and inscribed it to me.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
I'm just so giddy about that.
Yeah, you should be. And, it's amazing.
So my recommendation is, everything's on YouTube now. And I actually... maybe 20 years ago in a sales bin found, I don't know if it's VHS or DVD of Cool McCool. So you might see Cool McCool if you're
it's on YouTube too, I believe. Yeah, a little bit, maybe not all of it, but.
And so in addition to having Ron Campbell being one of the directors on that program, he was telling me about Bob Kane, who of course is famous as one of the creators of Batman, and that Bob Kane's contribution, his name's listed as one of the producers, creators of Cool McCool, but his role was coming up with the villains. So that the character design, the creation of all the villains was what Bob Kane brought to Cool McCool. So if you're sort of a cartoon completist, a Batman fan, you'll want to look up Cool McCool, and particularly for those villains that are Bob Kane creations.
Yes.
So Cool McCool is my very long backstory recommendation.
It's a good recommendation, and that print you got is amazing.
Oh yeah,
and you got a Beatles print as well.
I did too. I'm not going to talk about that too much. I can't speak of that.
Yes.
That's just too head floaty for me to talk about.
Well, I think it's amazing.
It is. It is very much.
So this is our episode today. Singles Going Steady 088, keeping it in the family. The Soup Dragons and their great single Whole Wide World, and we also heard a version of their If You Were the Only Girl in the World,
as performed by young upstarts from the upstate of South Carolina.
That Glasgow to Greenville, South Carolina connection.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. So I hope Ross is doing well. I hope everybody in the Soup Dragons is doing well. And we will talk to you next time.
Next time, guys.
Bye. To learn more about the artists and recordings we just talked about, visit our website at zubrecords.com and click on the Singles Going Steady icon.
You'll also find links to the persons, places, and things we recommend, and much more.
You can find episodes of Singles Going Steady on our website or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Singles Going Steady is brought to you by the power and majesty of Zub Records. Zub Records. Smart sounds for sharp people.